two, one, and go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to CIO Leadership Live. I'm Mary Fran Johnson, Executive Director of CIO Programs here at IDG, and I am truly delighted today to welcome back as one of our guests, Kathy Kozik, who is the CIO of PSAV on this September 10th edition of CIO Leadership Live. Based in Chicago, PSAV has been a big name in the events and meeting space since 1937. The company has grown into a $2 billion enterprise with operations in the U.S. and Canada, Mexico, the Caribbean, Europe, and the Middle East. And what the company does provides a whole range of strategic planning, creative production, advanced technology, and staging services, many of which we have taken advantage of in our own CIO Perspectives and CIO 100 events. Kathy has spent her career building high-performing teams in IT, customer service, and the engineering divisions of companies in several industries: telecommunications, public safety, transportation, and now the audiovisual and events and meeting space. Last year, she was inducted into our CIO Hall of Fame, and throughout her career has been known for investing heavily in the leadership development of her staff. Before she came to PSAV in early 2015, she served as the CIO in CIO roles for the Hub Group, Motorola, and Tel Labs. Kathy's also actively led diversity initiatives, including Motorola's Women's Business Council globally, and she serves on the Board of Trustees for the Northwestern Memorial Healthcare System. She also holds an MBA from the University of Chicago and an electrical engineering degree from Purdue. Kathy, welcome here.
Well, thanks for having me, Mary Fran. Always a pleasure to be with you.
Well, great. I have to say the electrical engineering thing surprised me. I should have asked you to do something engineering like the last time we got together.
I am a geek from way back.
You are.
So,
you're deeply
yes.
more technical than I realized. Well, good. Well, I always like to start these interviews giving our listeners and our viewers an idea about the business and the industry you're operating in. As you put it, you're in the business more of connecting and inspiring customers. Outsiders might look at what PSAV does and says, oh, the AV guys. But the company's changing. The market is changing. Talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. You know, the market is very definitely changing, and what our customers are looking for has changed. You know, we were the AV guys. You know, you need a projector, we'll get you a projector. When you need a flip chart, we'll get you a flip chart. Mm-hmm. But now what our customers are looking for, you know, particularly in this day and age where it's so hard to keep an attendee engaged, they're looking for someone who's going to help them really connect with that audience and inspire that audience to go out and make a change. Maybe that change is rolling out a new product. Maybe that change is being the best salespeople ever.
Right.
Maybe that change is as simple as opening their wallets and giving money for a charitable cause. And the people who plan these meetings really need someone who can help them make that happen. And that's where PSAV fits in.
Okay. Well, because I know from our own events that it's so important that all that work behind the scenes runs so flawlessly, because you only notice it when it doesn't work.
Absolutely. You know, in fact, one of the things, you know, a lot of people, and I'll say this for myself, when I interviewed with a company, it was PSAV who, or even worse, PSAV who, which is what some people say. But you know, we are probably one of the largest companies nobody knows about, but everybody has worked with.
Well, you're 5 times bigger than your nearest competitor, right?
We are certainly larger than our nearest competitor here in the U.S. You know, we respect them deeply for what they do. We just think we do it better.
Yes. Well, and of course, we know you because we've worked with you at some of our events. And I think I told you I often march back and ask them all if they know the CIO. Have they met Kathy Kozik? And the ones who haven't met you are probably making a little note to themselves. I better find out who this woman is when I get back to the office. Tell me about, we know that digital transformation means different things for different businesses. Let's talk a little bit about, in the event space itself, how is digital transformation that's going on across every industry in its own unique way, how does that impact what happens in meeting spaces, because some of it is the classic about getting people together in a room face to face. But now there's all this essentially digital infrastructure that's around them.
Absolutely. As we talked before, when you think about an attendee, when you think about your own experience as an attendee, I know I am equally guilty. You go to a conference, and if you get bored, the first thing you do is you look down at your phone and you check back and see what the football scores are, or if you're lucky, you're looking at your email for work. The reality is, we need that attendee to really use technology to help them stay engaged in the event.
The magic E word,
yes,
engagement.
Absolutely. And so the digital transformation of an event is really about, how do I keep that attendee engaged? How do I keep them connected to the message that's being delivered? And so it could be anything from, what color lights are we using in the room? And we program those so at different points they'll change colors. Psychologically, red keeps people excited, blue calms people down. So you need to make sure your colors are reflecting that.
Right.
Gamification, there we go, is really important as well. Again, keeps the attendee excited about what they're seeing. So that's something that we're invested in. And one of the most recent companies that we've purchased, a company by the name of Concise, really brings that attendee experience actually to their device. And so there's actually more information about what's going on in the event on their phone. Yeah. It's a second screen technology, and it really
it's an interactive live kind of
absolutely
app. Yeah.
It could be doing adding polling information. It could be sending more detail about a graph that's up on a screen. Anything that'll do that will help that attendee take notes, and most importantly, stay engaged.
Yeah. Well, I think I've had a kind of a love-hate relationship with the mobile apps, because especially when you're trying, until very recently, a lot of them weren't that good. And it was, I come out of a print journalism background. I like the idea of a conference brochure in my hands. I'll take my notes on that. And a lot of times, too, if you're getting IT executives together, one of the big reasons IT executives assemble is to talk to each other and to network. It's the number one reason why people go to any of our events out of IDG and with our CIO series. But you've got a room full of introverts. And so the draw to the phone, to checking what's going on in the office, and just the general, it's not first nature, I guess, for them to turn to the person next to them and start talking. So I'm always exhorting people at our events to actually network and chat with each other. But I do love the idea of the interactive element, because that, or the gamification, because once you get people engaged in that, they get kind of excited about it. And are they more likely to talk to each other?
They're definitely more likely to talk to each other. Once they get laughing, once they actually are contributing, they're going to lean over to the person next to them and have a conversation. There's also some technology that we've tried out where you, just based on some simple things you include in when you register, you can actually start matching with people, and your badge will start lighting up because you're next to somebody who's interested in the same topic that you are.
Kind of an event form of Tinder?
It is, absolutely.
Come and meet like-minded people. That would be fun, wouldn't it?
It mixes up the audience a lot.
Yeah.
And again, it really changes the dynamics of what happens in a show.
Yeah. That is interesting. Well, and I would imagine that right now across your industry that is very variable. Like you go to some shows and you'd find, if you've got this amazing new app, it's called Chime, right? The app. And is it in use now?
It is absolutely in use. It's been in use primarily in the financial community for quite some time now, actually. We're just bringing it out to a much broader audience now, so that we can continue to grow and build the application and the features and functionality within it.
Okay. Well, and I want to get in a little bit next to talking about the different business and technology initiatives you have underway. But I also wanted to remember to point out to the audience, if you're watching us right now live on Twitter and you have a question for Kathy, please tweet it in to us, and we've got a super sophisticated filtering system where my colleague Ellen will let me know that you have tweeted in, and we will ask our CIO directly. So please avail yourself of that capability. So back to this, when the companies in your industry are all changing because of digital technologies, how is that shaking out in terms of new disruptors that are coming around the edges? You know, everybody always names, the taxi industry didn't see Uber coming, and Airbnb and that sort of thing. Do you have anything equivalent to that going on in the whole meeting and event space?
Absolutely. There's a number of things that are going on that we're both a part of and watching very carefully. Airbnb, which you mentioned, is a great example. We have 1,500 hotel partners, and so they're certainly seeing the Airbnb market disrupting groups that are coming, may or may not choose to come to a hotel venue. So we're looking at that in terms of understanding the impact to our very important venue partners, but also thinking about, well, how else can we serve that customer base who is choosing to go to an Airbnb? We're looking at, how do you sell that solution experience online? There's people playing at the edges there. But that's an area that we're looking at very heavily and really looking to invest in the coming years.
Okay, good. Well, and as we get further into our conversation, I want to talk about some of your specific innovation approaches. But next, I wanted to ask you about, and I always ask CIOs to talk about their top business and technology initiatives. And one of the things you said to me when we discussed this, you said they're all one and the same. And now, is that because PSAV is a smaller company, well, $2 billion in size, so you're not General Motors, but you're a good-sized company, or is that more your approach as a CIO?
That's really, I would say, my approach as a CIO has been all along, and certainly the approach of the company. There's anything that we choose to invest in has to have a great return to the business and a very quick return to the business. Our business moves fast. IT has to move just as quickly, if not faster. And so making sure we're picking the right programs that are directly aligned with the business strategy, and that we're ensuring that nothing turns into shelfware, because not all of us hate shelfware in terms of the waste that's involved there. So all of that's really important to us. We are directly aligned to where the business is going, and that's where all the money and project effort goes. Okay.
And how do you, on kind of a week-by-week, day-by-day basis, how do you make sure that happens? Do you have some sort of a governance or a vetting committee, or how do you make sure that you don't take on something that will be a huge tech implementation success and then a business failure?
Well, the key things that we do down closer to the business, we have decisions that get made by what we call our SEAL team, people who come directly out of the business and who are very focused on what are the immediate changes that we need to see in our existing systems to drive the business forward. So that's one way we make sure it doesn't get wasted. But at the higher, more strategic level, it all comes down to that business case, because the business case has to be real. In fact, if you say you're going to get more revenue, guess what? It goes in your budget and in your business plan. If you say that you're going to be more efficient, it again goes in your business plan.
You have to have metrics. Essentially,
you have to have metrics, and I will put it this way: we're getting better about measuring those metrics. Initially, it was a little more subjective, but we've been driving ourselves to become a lot more objective in what we're measuring.
Well, I'm sure over your CIO career, you've seen a lot of wonderful IT metrics that didn't mean anything to people on the business side. What's an example of a metric that IT tracks closely that the business is completely that matters to them as well.
You know, the things that we are looking at are our business measures. So we are actually looking at revenue as it comes in. We're looking at our team member usage. We're looking at making sure our team members are getting hours instead of outside team members. All of that due to the analytics that we're now delivering in near real time to all of our venue leaders. So it's things like that that we're measuring. It's not the traditional, well, how many people are using it? Although we do that, right?
I'm sure,
when we're doing some pilot work, we're doing a major pilot right now, and we do look at usage. But to me, that's just the entry point. It really goes back to, are we getting the business result that we expected? Are customers more happy with the services that we're providing? Those kinds of things.
Well, and you mentioned too that essentially as you change from more of an AV equipment rental business to a much more consultative and more encompassing company approach, I wondered, how do you get those consultation skills ramped up within IT? Have you created new roles, people that are like business relationship managers or?
We definitely have business relationship managers. I think that's really critical. You have to have someone who feels ownership for the individual functions within an organization. That's critical. But the other thing that I've done is get my folks, everybody in the IT team, out into the field so everybody can play the role of business relationship manager, at least in some way. And as an example, right now I have 63 folks in my organization overall. In every one of their goals for the year is to spend a day out in the field as a tech, and they spend half the day actually setting up events and understanding how incredibly difficult and demanding that job is. And the other half they spend with people actually using the systems that we create so that they can understand, well, what really is working, what isn't, what is everybody swearing about underneath their breath, but never making the time to call the service center to complain. So that's really, to me, the most important thing about getting the IT team engaged.
Yes. And can you think of any ideas that came back from these field visits? When they came back from it, because I've had these conversations with CIOs. I remember one in a grocery store chain went and spent a day in a bakery, and he burned everything he touched. But he came back with a couple of really good ideas for streamlining the process of taking orders or something like that. So do you have anything like that has come back, intel from the field?
Absolutely. In fact, that's the pilot that I was talking about. We have a mobile app for our technicians. In the past, our technicians and the leaders of each one of those venues would have a piece of paper for all the work they were going to do in a day. And they would scribble notes on it throughout the day, and they had a clipboard, and it would get messy, and they would add things.
I've seen those sheets of the timing.
Yes, flow sheets is what we call them. We've now put all of that on a mobile app. It's live across 1,300 venues at this point. And not only is there the facts, if you will, what do I need to set up? There's also room diagrams. How do I set it up? There's also, and this is probably the most important part, a link into information out of our CRM. So now for the first time, the technicians know exactly, why is this customer having this meeting? What messages are they trying to deliver? What kind of environment are they trying to create? So not just the technical bits and bytes of this kind of projector, this kind of screen, it's why, which to me is really important to me and to leadership, is really important about helping the technician be a part of that customer's journey.
Yeah. And that reminds me, too, of a book that some CIOs have recommended to me, and it's one of those leadership inspirational, I think Simon Sinek is the author, and it's called Getting to Why or First Ask Why, or it's along that whole idea that once people understand what they're doing in the bigger context, it just matters more.
Context is everything as far as I'm concerned for any job that you have. And, if a customer comes into a room, they're already stressed because this is their meeting. They have to look good in front of their boss.
Is it too cold in the room?
Is it too hot?
Yeah.
Those colors are all wrong. I gave you the wrong presentation.
It's too dark up on stage.
All of those things.
It's my world.
They need somebody who's looking them in the eye and saying, it's going to be okay.
Yeah,
I got your back.
We'll fix that. Yes,
Yeah.
we'll get the hotel in here right away, and we'll
Right.
fix that. When you first joined you in January 2015, what were your marching orders when you came in? What kind of before and after picture was your CEO? Because you report to the CEO.
Right.
So what was he looking for?
So what he and the board were really looking for was a couple of things. One was we hadn't invested in IT really since the recession. As you can well imagine, with a recession, there was a pretty big downturn in business events.
Oh, yeah.
So IT was kind of the last thing within the company to recover after the recession. So it was about, let's reinvest, let's refresh our technology, let's make sure we've got the right basic blocking and tackling. But also, by the way, let's start digitizing ourselves. Let's use analytics and start to do meaningful things about really maturing the organization and driving it forward.
Well, you must have had to then look at essentially the whole business workflow and how technology, because just upgrading to the next version of Microsoft, whatever, doesn't really get anybody's business moving forward.
Well, it doesn't. I will say this, as an event business, Microsoft Office is we live and die by that.
Okay.
And so making sure that we do have the most current version, which we did not, is really important.
Yeah.
But also it is about understanding the business. It is about understanding what matters most to the business. And most importantly of all, because I have a great team of people who have great experience in terms of developing applications. But what we didn't have was the trust of the business, because we were having stability issues, and every CIO will tell you, if you can't get the basics right, why should I talk to you about my strategy?
I know. You run into the CEO in the hallway and he wants to know, why was the network down? And, and that conversation is a black hole.
It never goes where you want it to go.
It never goes well, no.
Yes.
Well, and you mentioned actually some of the things that big tech changes you've had underway and are even ongoing now, like upgrading your CRM and upgrading your finance, your big enterprise finance. You also mentioned that you rewrote the internal operating system that you use for event delivery, all while changing out the infrastructure.
Absolutely.
That sounds like fun.
It was. It's been a tremendous time.
Yeah. Everybody's got party hats on. Yeah.
Well, there were days we didn't have party hats on, but it has been a lot of really good work. And again, it's because everybody within the organization could directly see the results of what they did, whether it was make email more stable, or it was improving the user interface for our operating environment. All of those things, paid direct dividends in terms of the trust, the respect, the willing to work with us that we got back from the business as a part of the work that was being done.
Good. Well, and you'd mentioned too when we talked that you're predominantly on premise right now with all your software versus being in the cloud. How is that? Do you have folks on the business side, like I'm thinking of the people in marketing and sales, for instance, pushing for more like, why aren't we cloud now? Because so often the business side of the organization thinks the cloud is like a magical place, whereas really it's just somebody else's data center. But,
yes.
But what is your view on that? Is there a business plan to move X percentage of the apps to the cloud, or?
You know, we are privately owned, and when you're in the private equity business, EBITDA is what matters. And so, if we go to the cloud, if and when we go to the cloud, because there are places we need to go to the cloud. We need to understand the business impact that's going to have in our P&L statement. So that's something that we continue to work. We, again, same thing. We have to look for a good business case that can justify that change, fairly significant change, in fact, in how we are reporting our earnings. So it's not a technology issue.
Oh, interesting.
I'd love to go to the cloud in some places. It really is much more about financial management and making sure we're doing the right thing by our owners.
Yeah, because it's hard to imagine any kind of company-wide digital transformation that doesn't use the cloud somewhere as a platform or as a provider. It's so. But then again, we just had at our big CIO 100 event last month. I had Randy Mott from General Motors on stage talking about why he went out and built 4 data centers and why he moved from 90% outsourced in the cloud to 90% insourced. So, in IT, there's always a lively debate that goes on about how much should you outsource.
Absolutely. And, in my career experience, what I'll tell you is that I've been parts of organizations that were 0% outsourced and 90% outsourced.
Yep.
Both answers are wrong, right? You don't want to be 90% outsourced because now you don't really know how your company is run. You really don't.
Right.
You don't know where your data is. You don't know how all the things that you need to be able to do with it. But 0% is also equally wrong, right? Because you're not moving fast enough. I can almost guarantee you're not moving fast enough for your business.
Yeah.
And certainly your cost structure is going to be challenged. So finding that sweet spot, and every business is probably different.
Yeah.
But finding that sweet spot that's right for your business is where you really need to focus.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I've heard ratios thrown out like 60-40, 70-30. We want to be this much in cloud. And some businesses can do it and want to be 100% in cloud. But then you get other CIOs that say, where's your intellectual property resource there?
Absolutely.
You're always renting it instead of growing it. Well, let's delve into a couple of examples of some of the IT improvements, the things that you've been doing since 2015 that have that your business folks would recognize and say, "Oh yes, that was valuable."
Absolutely. I can give you a couple of examples. Certainly, the most obvious is the stability of the organization. Now, of course, I have to knock on wood because my team knows every time I say something stupid like that, something goes down. Yeah. So, anyhow,
that 99.59's uptime, you don't want to be saying that on the day where that one little digit.
That one thing happens. That one data center has a little bit of an issue down in San Antonio.
We'll call it a glitch.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So certainly uptime is probably the thing that bought us the most value. But on top of that, in terms of business applications, some really key ones. One of the most important ones that we've done is to help our scheduling for all of our team members. We have about 9,000 employees altogether. We're very proud of the fact that about 95% of them are directly customer facing. And we were very localized in terms of how we scheduled work for our team members. And one of the things that we missed with that was that where there were opportunities to give more hours to our employees and fewer hours to external contractors, we were missing all of those opportunities. Now with the new applications that we have out, they're able to do that, and we've significantly improved the number of hours that we keep in-house, which gives us the ability to train and develop more of our own employees and really make sure that they have long career journeys in front of them because they have more opportunities to be in front of the customer.
Well, and I hope that internally somehow, like in a newsletter or some kind of IT marketing, I hope somebody's making noise about that.
No, we've talked about that.
Oh,
Now,
good.
Like
Yeah.
every IT organization, I will say we are desperately challenged in terms of communicating. We communicate too much. We communicate too little. Nobody ever reads the emails anyhow.
I
So that's something actually as a company as a whole we're working on.
Yeah.
We've refreshed our intranet and went from something that looked old, and now we have a very nice, fresh interface for our intranet. We've used our employee feedback about what should be up there, and probably
Great.
one of the great examples in terms of things that have helped IT with that is our downtime notices now are on the front page of the intranet instead of yet another email that people have to read.
Right.
And so that's appreciated, but probably even more importantly, all those videos of how to run that new application.
Yeah.
Very easy to find, very
Nice.
easy to follow,
Nice.
nice, crisp, clean, short.
That's good. That's good. Like what they would want to find on YouTube.
Yes,
Essentially.
exactly.
Yeah.
Which is what we're focused on doing.
Well, that's good. And I find, I always ask CIOs about the whole marketing and communication aspect of what they're doing and accomplishing in IT, because it's a real Achilles heel for IT leaders everywhere. And it's one of my big beefs with CIOs is the excess of modesty that many CIOs have. Actually, when we were getting this show started, I was a little worried that I wouldn't be able to talk people into coming on here and talking frankly about great things they're doing as well as how they're solving problems, because CIOs always want to, well, give me another year and I'll have more results. So
Well, none of us can wait another year to have real results.
that's a good point.
All of our
Yeah.
companies are moving so fast.
Yeah.
You know, the days of doing an ERP over 18 months, 24 months,
Yeah.
none of us should be doing that anymore.
Right.
Because
right.
we're going to break our businesses by taking too long to get to value.
Well, that reminds me too, and it's a natural at this point to ask you about, does that all mean agile development? And I had never heard the term before from you that you used, Wagile.
Wagile.
All right, let's talk about
Yes.
Wagile and what that means.
You know,
I feel a
for-
little like Bugs Bunny here. Like,
For us, what Wagile means is that, yes, in terms of requirements management, testing, et cetera, yada, yada, we use what feels like a waterfall approach, but we do it in sprints. And so we'll do a 3-week sprint following that process, making sure we got the right requirements, we've done the wireframes, we have our test plans, et cetera, but we do them very quickly. So we don't have the formal Scrum Masters and
stand-up meetings. Every Friday.
We do some of those stand-up meetings, but
Yeah.
but it's certainly not the formal process anybody would recognize.
You're right.
But it works for us.
Yep. Well, and I've actually heard versions of that from a lot of CIOs. It's like taking on a particular eating plan. There's like 17 different ways to do it.
Right.
And Agile is the same way. There's classic Agile, and there's various branded Agile approaches.
Right.
And I don't run into anybody who's like following something, chapter and verse.
There's
So.
a few people out there, but one of the things that I've seen with IT organizations is we can get sucked into religious wars. Another one that I've seen is ITIL. Well, we have to
right.
follow ITIL, to the
We
letter.
can't be Agile till we do
Till
ITIL.
we do
I've heard that.
ITIL, and no, for every company, there's bits and pieces that are really good fits. Do that.
Well, and remind me, I remember that it's information technology something library. What is
Information technology something library.
ITIL? Okay, you too,
Information
huh?
library. No,
Is
I
that
don't
a
remember.
workflow framework?
It's about workflow.
Yeah.
It's about actually how you run, more about your services, and
So it's the underlying process
the underlying
of getting the work
process of
done.
recovering from an outage, and
Okay.
having an incident versus
An international incident versus a domestic incident.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Well, and I also wanted to remind you to talk about another application you'd mentioned when we were thinking of things that delivered real business value, something called Lighthouse.
Lighthouse is the application that, as I said, we are just rolling out now and is out there in the 1,300 employees' hands. We went in pilot. This was something that was done very much in conjunction with all of our technicians.
Okay. And this is not the workflow app that you talked about previously. This is another one.
This is another one. And again, it's really about making sure that we have the right information in people's hands, that it addresses the way they really work, as opposed to the way we in corporate think they work. In fact, one of the approaches that we're bringing into the company is John Cotter's Accelerate process, and that's where you really engage people directly into making their lives better and letting them come up with the innovative ideas and engaging directly in making sure that it comes to fruition and it really works the way they need it to. And so, although
it sounds like an ownership approach.
It's very much about ownership, and again, it's not, you don't set up a special team to do things. You get people to nominate themselves, to want to be a part of it. We've seen some good outcomes, not only in IT, but in other areas of the company. And this is something that we're really looking forward to driving harder and into the organization.
Interesting. Is it training classes or online videos? How do people learn about Accelerate?
It really, at this point, we're still in the formative stages. So it's discussion groups more than anything else. We have a lot of work to do to make it more formal. But as I said, we've had these couple of experiments that really tell us that this is worth something worth doubling down on. And, whenever you get corporate involved in initiatives, it's too easy to become not invented here or all the reasons why something doesn't work. We want to get that noise out and make sure we're following that.
Well, that's interesting too, because that's going after a big change in perhaps what is company culture.
Absolutely.
Because you've got, and probably at PSAV is like most companies where the majority of employees have many years in with the company. I mean, the company's been around since 1937. That happens, right? But changing company, what was it the saying that culture eats strategy for lunch? Yes. I hear that a lot, and I think that's probably very true. So some of it depends on how much enthusiasm you have generated from the CEO and the rest of the C-levels on this.
Well, the CEO is the driving force behind this.
That helps.
Mike, if you're listening, this one's for you. And again, you see it happen and you see it work. And most importantly, you see the ownership and the engagement the employees have because they are now part of that change. In PSAV, we're 9,000 really creative people. And some of the things I've seen our team members do, it's just amazing what they can do. And so to engage them in improving their own life, nothing but good can come from that.
And a lot of them, too, are fairly technical. I mean, they are used to working with audiovisual equipment and staging setups, and a lot of that stuff is pretty techy. So it's nice. I mean, it's not like you have a whole bunch of people that are afraid of their laptops.
Absolutely. That's not the case here.
And that reminds me, we had talked about the approach you take to innovation. I always ask about that because some companies take a much more formal and structured approach. Some of them have a method. Sometimes there's an innovation lab. Here's where you go with your idea. But you'd mentioned that a lot of the innovation actually comes from the field, and it's more of an informal company-wide approach. Talk a little bit about that. How
Absolutely.
It works.
As I said, we're 9,000 very, very creative people. And so we do have an innovation council. It's led by our chief innovation officer. And I'm a member of it along with several other members of the executive team. So we work on coming up with new ideas, things that will let us out Uber our competition, if you will. But again, the reality is there's 9,000 people out in the field, the ones who serve the customer every day, who have to, who see new technology and have really wonderful ideas, experiments that they run on a daily basis, investing in what they see and encouraging them to bring up those ideas is what really matters. And so, again, I'll use Lighthouse as an example. We've been running surveys throughout our pilot over the last year, and those surveys have given us all the feedback that have then gone into the program. We thought that what we needed most importantly was room diagrams, and room diagrams are certainly important. We got that feedback, but push notifications, the ability for a manager or a regional manager to push out notices on the spot to their employees is what's most important to them. And so, we changed our development program now to make sure that that's what we do next.
Right. Well, when we think about the tech skills and the things that are key to what you're doing as a business, you'd mentioned that user experience, or the UX, is something that you've invested in and are continuing to invest. Where is that kind of investment? Where does that go? Is that UX training on the technology organization side, or is there a part of it that's also business oriented?
It's all of the above.
Okay.
We have. We've done a number of things to make sure, from a technology perspective, that our team members are exposed to things like, I'll recommend a book, Steve Krug's Rocket Surgery Made Easy.
Okay.
You can find it on Amazon. It's a great book. It's an easy read, has lots of pictures, always important.
Yep.
But it really brings home what we need to do, what all of us as technologists need to do, so that we can create an application that's just intuitively obvious to use. That's so simple you can sit in front of something and know right away what you're supposed to do. And as opposed to some of the arcane things that sometimes technologists can come up, myself included. And so that certainly is one piece. But the other piece also is talking, as we go through business processes, to think about, well, how do we make them simpler, not more complex, but how do we get things down to the things that really matter? In sales, for example, we've gone through a number of initiatives to change our sales process and get it closer to the customer. But then we realized recently that it's gotten a little too scientific and a little too complex. And so now we're starting to pull things out of there. Again, it's an intuitive process, as opposed to something that somebody has to look at the cheat sheet to figure out, well, what am I supposed to do next?
And did you hear feedback from the salespeople on that, or was it that you noticed usage was falling off?
Feedback from the field, definitely. And we listen very carefully to what all of our employees have to say. Sales team members can be the most emphatic of some of the audience.
They're good talkers.
They're very good talkers,
Yep.
and as they should be, and they're wonderful at it. And so listening very carefully to what they're telling us, and really changing our approach, not only so it's easy for the salesperson to do, but most importantly, so it's in the customer's language instead of our own. So that's in fact one of the next things we're going to be investing in.
All right. Well, and we've talked about a number of the things that have been going really well and very successfully. Where have you fallen into like a little pit on something? What has been, like maybe an overdevelopment on something that kind of backfired?
Probably the best example of that was getting ahead of ourselves on some technology. As we were refreshing our infrastructure, in fact, we tried out some new storage technology, server and storage technology, and it was the best, hottest thing.
Yahoo!
Go team! Ooh,
Yeah.
this is good geeky stuff, right?
Yeah.
And we didn't realize that it wasn't a good fit for our major operating environment, and in fact, we got ourselves into trouble in terms of being able to provide the right performance for the company, and so that certainly was something we needed to fix and fix very, very quickly. So
Walk or run that back.
Yes,
essentially.
very quickly. So that's one from a technology side. From an application side, I talked earlier about shelfware.
Yes.
There were a couple of things that were really great ideas.
Yep.
Primarily from members of the leadership team, and we were all behind it. And this is the right thing to do. But we hadn't thought about the impact to the end user. We hadn't thought about, and who's going to look at the results from this?
Right.
And so we developed a couple of really cool applications with great business need to be filled.
But they kind of were before their time.
And in fact, the right pieces of them are now in Lighthouse.
Oh, that's nice. Well, it's one of the things that I think, and I think CIOs know this, but sometimes business people aren't as attuned to it, is the notion that you can't keep innovating you have to have failures if you're doing real innovation, because innovation just by definition is something you haven't done before, right? It's a new way of doing it. And I've always maintained that the best definition of innovation is trying something new that actually works out.
Right.
All the other stuff is the failing fast and forward kind of thing.
Yes. And failing fast, and that's one of the things all of us as IT people have to be honest about.
Yeah.
First of all, you have to acknowledge there are things that are not going to work.
Yeah.
But most importantly, you also have to be able to look in the mirror and say, this is the one that didn't work.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah.
Just stop. Even if there's still someone in the business saying, but we got to have it.
Well,
stop.
I've talked with so many CIOs who will come in. A lot of times if they're joining new companies, they'll get in and they'll look, and there will be a lineup of 95 projects in the queue, because the IT department in recent years has gotten very allergic to the word no. And everybody comes along, especially if it's one of the C-levels, great idea, boss, and that one gets in the queue, and there sometimes isn't a company culture to be able to say, let's dig into that a little bit and see how it would really work. And I think that's tough for any company to do.
It's tough for any company, but again, as a CIO, it really is your responsibility to do that.
Okay.
Find the zombies and kill them. You and I were talking about vampires earlier. Well, this is a case of zombies.
Yeah.
We all have zombie projects. We all need to grow up and kill them.
Yep. Well, I've heard too, one of the methods I've heard some CIOs talk about is they'll make themselves like a grid, and it will be all the projects that have the real business value delivery go in this box, and the ones that have no obvious owner and no obvious delivery, they get to be essentially sunsetted, or I guess zombie killed.
Zombie killed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and since we're talking about zombies, we should talk about robots, artificial intelligence, and all that sort of stuff. You said you're investing in some AI capabilities, especially things like natural language interfaces. Talk about kind of that bleeding edge of technology, and where do you find the things to invest in, and what kind of things are you doing?
Well, what we're looking at, particularly around AI, is really taking our analytics projects to the next level.
Okay.
When one of the things that I and others were brought on board was to provide better analytics, and in fact, we've gone from having a rough idea of how things are going but not really knowing until after close.
Having a gut feel.
Yeah, having that gut feel to now we're near real time in terms of how the business is doing, and we can make immediate decisions. Now we want to take it to the next level. We want to talk about forecasting. We want to talk about not only forecasting what's going to happen in the foreseeable future, but also starting to look at, hey, if we know how things have worked in Chicago for the last 3 years, what can we predict given what we know about the economy or, the customers who are choosing to come into Chicago that will tell us what the event experience is going to be in the next year to two. So we're just starting to play with that.
Okay.
We've done a couple of things around large business, predicting ballroom business, and understanding again what the variables are. What the data will tell us the variables are about that business and what it looks like and how it grows and how successful we are in achieving that business. So that's one thing that we're looking at. We know there's more opportunities out there in AI. Again, being one of the larger businesses in this particular industry, we have a wealth of information, and we're just now poised really to milk that for a lot more insight, and hopefully a lot of insight in terms of how we can better serve our customers as well. So that's one thing that we're playing with. Natural language. I want our customers and our technicians and our salespeople to be able to say, hey, PSAV, I want an event that looks like this.
Like your in-house version of Alexa?
Yes, exactly. Okay. And so we're starting to play around with that.
Yeah.
We hope to have some good things in the next year or so in that space.
Well, you had mentioned virtual reality too, the VR stuff. I remember a few years ago when virtual conferences were popping up and everyone in the conference and event business was a little deer in the headlights about, geez, what's going to happen if people actually just attend events at their computer screens? And it didn't come about, but I also remember way back when Apple tried with the Newton, and it was a huge failure.
Right.
And then fast forward a few more years, and you've got the iPad. So, stuff eventually, things that maybe were not, it wasn't the time for it. You have to do a certain amount of assuming that in the future it may be the time.
I think it will play a role.
Okay.
I don't think it will totally replace the face-to-face experience. We're firm believers as a company that there's a lot more that gets achieved by actually looking at somebody eyeball to eyeball.
Yeah.
And having those accidental meetings as you both go to grab the same cookie in the afternoon break. Why are they always cookies?
Yeah, I know. I know.
But anyhow, we do believe face-to-face will always matter because you do achieve so much more. That being said...
And you're totally singing to the choir here. I just love that whole idea, but yeah.
But there are cases where people can't attend.
Yes.
And in person. And so there's some technology that's in place that a couple of companies are using. ESPN, for example, uses it as an offering around gaming experience where you can have the front row of the front seat of the house using virtual reality. Something like that, I think there's opportunities there. One of the opportunities we have seen with a pickup so far is virtual reality for visits before you pick the location you're going to have your event in.
Tour the actual ballroom.
Tour the actual ballroom. Have an experience where you can see, in terms of augmented reality, what that ballroom would look like if it was set up the way that you're looking to set up your event.
Yes. Well, and I know like the cruise industry and the real estate industry are already making great use of that kind of. Do you do a certain amount of that where you just watch around in other industries on what and how they're using something? What have you seen lately that impressed you?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure I have a good answer.
All right.
Let me come back to that one.
Okay, we'll come back to that one. And I've got a follow-up on that about how do you keep track of the leading edge of technology? Do you read? Do you visit Silicon Valley? Do you send people out? Do you just come to all my events and then learn about it that way?
We come to learn from your knee all the time, Mary Fran. But no, we do go out to events. There's a number of events that are specific to the hospitality industry.
Okay,
and so we do try to keep a very close eye on what's going on in the hospitality industry. I'll also say, I'm a long-term Gartner client. Spend a lot of time paying attention to things that they talk about as well.
And they occasionally get something right.
And we look at anywhere that we can find. Essentially, I'm an avid reader of business articles. Spend a lot of time with the Wall Street Journal and a number of other papers.
I love Peter High's column in Forbes.com.
Yes, Peter's column is awesome.
Yes. He interviewed you not too long ago.
He did.
Yes.
But really, we should all be looking at everything, trying to understand what the art of the possible is. And to go back to your last question, one of the things that you had asked was things that I've seen that I'm excited about. We've had the sense that setting up meetings is something that has to be done face to face. What we're seeing is that that there are some smaller, more social setups that can be done
by texting.
I don't know about texting. It's a very visual thing, but certainly by having an experience. There's an organization called Bizly.com that we've looked at that enables you to have a special meeting experience.
Oh, this is non-traditional meeting spaces.
Non-traditional meeting spaces. And so just, paying attention to that, and really probably most importantly, paying attention to what the millennials are doing in general, and how they interact with things,
right?
And what experiences they're looking for, because in 10, 15 years, they're going to be the meeting planners of the future.
Well, they would probably tell you that's 2 to 3 years, by the way, because they'll all be VPs by then.
Yes. I've had some of those conversations.
Well, and speaking of that, that reminds me about how you bring in talent on your own staff. Have you acquired millennials of your own? And
we have.
I know that the Chicago market for technology talent is fierce. Because we're going to be there in 2 days with our CIO Perspectives event. And that's always, whenever I talk with Chicago CIOs, I'm like, what is your number one problem? And they're like, talent.
Yes.
So what have you done to bring them in?
It's about building relationships with universities.
Okay.
And, because, we all need some of the fresh ideas that are coming out of universities. So connecting with professors, we're doing some analytics work with SMU, for example, down in Dallas. We've worked with IIT in Chicago. So making sure that you have access to a good flow of talent, but also getting known. I mean, selfishly, I'll tell you, one of the reasons I'm on this right now is just to make sure people know who PSAV is.
That's right.
And know it's a cool business and we do cool stuff in IT.
And you're based in a cool city. Everybody likes Chicago.
Absolutely.
Yes, especially
right on the
in
blue
September.
line.
Right on the blue line. All right, that's great. One of the best foodie cities in the
Yes.
world is Chicago. Yes. So we're always thrilled when we go there, although I end up working most of the time I'm there. But I keep thinking I should give myself a day on either end. And
You have to
Yeah,
go to
I
the
know.
Art Institute.
I know.
go-
Well, last year we had the CIO of the Cleveland Museum of Art come and do a presentation. She's doing the most amazing things with all kinds of
Art lens.
visual art lens and all.
Yes.
So you're familiar, yeah. It's fascinating these days how many industries have the leading edge stuff that's going on, and I love to find this. Oftentimes, the person leading the way is the CIO.
Well, in fact, that story about Art Lens and the Cleveland Museum of Art was
Yes.
one of the things that inspired me around visualization and how we can,
Great.
even if we can't go directly to e-commerce, we can certainly make it easier to visualize what the
Yes.
art of the possible is. In fact, we just opened a new inspiration section on our website with the marketing team is working with our field folks, in fact,
Yeah.
to come up with wonderful pictures to
I
help
looked
people.
at it. The art is beautiful on that.
Yeah. And just understanding the art of the possible, she helped open my eyes to that. too.
Good. Well, the CIO role itself, it has evolved and changed a lot over the last few years. And when I think back to your CIO roles at Hub Group and at Motorola, how is this different? How does this feel different to you as a CIO? What are some of the things that are just more fun to do that you didn't get to do in the past?
So one of the things I'll say is just it's a really fun business. It's
very
not to say,
fast-moving.
not to say manufacturing's not interesting and fun or
Right.
moving trucks, but we do really creative things. Whether it's doing one of the things I love is video mapping, where you take projectors and you can put them on buildings and show different things. We have a team in the UK that does wonderful work with that at Cambridge University, and just gorgeous
neat.
things.
Yeah.
And we're doing that around the globe. So things like that, things like working on West End shows in London, the Capitals, Washington Capitals celebration parade, Tony Bennett's 90th birthday party.
These are all PSAV
These are
events.
all PSAV events.
And the Skyball, right?
And
With
the
American
Skyball
Airlines?
with American Airlines, which is just a wonderful event. Everybody should look it up. It's in a hangar down in Dallas, Fort Worth for veterans, and it's an amazing experience.
And you think you've seen a big screen until you see what you guys
see a screen that
do with
covers an
Skyball.
entire hangar,
Wow.
airplane hangar. And so, and then yes, we do fabulous things for organizations like CIO, IDG. We do fabulous things for Fortune 500 companies, big, small. It's just a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, and your business has been very focused on, you're in hotels, you're in 1,500 hotels and convention centers. But what is I'll as my wrap up question, I'll ask you, what is the growth strategy for the company? I mean, because at some point you run out of hotels, and what do you do then? And how much of it is US based versus global?
We are certainly heavier in hotels at this point, and heavier in the U.S. and Canada in terms of our business. We look to shift that going forward. We do expect to continue to grow in the markets that we're currently in, but we are really doubling down and then some on production, on the large scale production, including creating creative content, etc.
Oh, great.
And so that's one area that we're spending more time on. A lot of new IT work has to go in around that, as well as trade shows and exhibits. Again, we've got a great presence in that space already. We know we can do more. We're in a lot of convention centers. We know we can do more. And then, we're looking for different things as well. A lot of people don't know we're in Fenway Park here in Boston.
Okay.
We're in Twickenham Stadium in the UK. And so the sports venues, everybody's looking for something new and unique to do in their meetings.
Yeah.
Sports venues is a great place to go as well.
Oh, I see. Well, this sounds like a great place to put in a plug with your CEO to double your size of your IT organization.
Well, absolutely.
Should we do that?
Yes.
We'll just end with that. A message to Mike. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Mary Fran.
It's been a pleasure talking with you as always. And I will see you in 2 days at our event in Chicago.
Sounds great.
Thank you so much, Kathy. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. If you are joining us late and would like to watch the full episode, which of course I highly recommend, you can find it posted by tomorrow. It will be on CIO.com. And the audio podcast of my interview with Kathy will be on iTunes and Google Play and SoundCloud. And if you've enjoyed our CIO Leadership Live, do join me for our next episode, which will be coming up in about 2 weeks on Friday, September 28th at 1:30 in the afternoon. And I'll be joined by Dick Daniels, who is the CIO at Kaiser Permanente, the giant healthcare organization based out in California. And we will, as we always do on CIO Leadership Live, we'll have a great conversation. Thanks for being with us today.